The bell tolls. The midnight hour is upon us. It's time once again for two internet strangers to discuss the good and evil of the horror genre. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the terror within the Hallow-Holics Anonymous podcast.
That salty ocean air. This is what summers are all about. Don't you think so?
Totally. You don't mind me bringing our guest on this week, do you?
Well, he doesn't really talk, but he seems pretty chill, so I don't see why not.
Cool. I'm just gonna play this music real quick while he walk dances over to the bar to grab me a drink.
In the meantime, let's go ahead and start the show.
Hi, I'm Corey.
I'm Maddie.
And this is Hallow-Holics Anonymous, a show dedicated to all things horror and occasionally Halloween.
Welcome back, our old friend Voodoo, in part 2, anyway. Shades of Serpent and the Rainbow seem to be sprinkled over the plot with little, if anything, to do with actual voodoo. By the way...
Very little.
Yes, this week we are doing Weekend at Bernie's 1 and 2.
And destroying my childhood in the process. Well, my early teens in the process.
The style of the comedy in these two movies can be best described as goofball. Think of Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn. Fast-talking Andrew McCarthy in Katharine's role, and constantly stressed-out Andrew Silverman in place of Cary Grant. Swap out your renegade panther with a dead guy, played by Terry Kaiser, and Weekend at Bernie's was born. The occasional silly characters rushing in all at once is also reminiscent of farce. Check your brain at the door, and keep in mind that a corpse, voodoo, and murder do feature in these films, so if you think about it, I'm not cheating at all when I say they're also a little bit on the summer horror side of the spectrum too, and that's exactly why we're doing them this week.
I was about to make a comment to say that we need to add something to the tagline because we're straying a little bit away from horror in a few of these episodes, which I think is absolutely fine as long as we keep it weird, which we have been.
Look, as long as we have an explanation.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And as long as we sort of relate it to something slightly dark, we good.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Come on, voodoo and murder.
Right.
Yeah, and corpses.
So this sort of is the tail end of the boob comedy genre as well. At least Weekend at Bernie's 2 kind of feels that way to me because there is gratuitous nudity very briefly in that one. There's none in the first one, but they both still have... Like you said, they do the whole straight man, wacky, well, in this case, completely sociopathic nutjob Larry and the straight man Richard. But yeah, this is also the tail end of that sort of like wacky boy hijinks nonsense that like Hamburger the movie had, Hard Bodies, stuff
Meatballs.
like that. Meatballs, yeah.
The
some of the
Party.
later Meatball, The Bachelor Party, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, some of the Meatballs more than others.
Boob comedies, yes. We've certainly had a renaissance in boob comedies in the last decade and a half, but I feel like the ones from this era, from Weekend at Bernie's and all those, I feel like movies like this, now I'm not talking about Meatballs or Animal House or the really adult stuff, but They were a little easier to keep your kids in the room with and watch. Some of the more adult humor kids wouldn't catch. And now a lot of it is like really heavy cussing and full frontal nudity and just kind of gross.
Yeah, and I also think we're leaving an era, we're not leaving an era, we left an era. These movies sort of represent the tail end of the whole rampant sexism and casual racism in comedy. I mean, it still happens to this day, but I think there's a certain level of it that happened all throughout the 80s into the 90s a little bit that they started backing off from in the early to mid 90s.
I'll say that it seems like we're still pretty comfortable making racial jokes about Indians and Middle Easterners, but
yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe which culture is acceptable to make fun of changes. Maybe that's what it is. But yeah, I definitely think women are treated differently in a lot of the boob comedies that are coming out now, or at least it's done in a more ironic fashion. But even in Weekend at Bernie's, which I'm sure, I mean, we'll definitely get to this. Mm-hmm. In mine, and probably in yours too, at least I'll mention it. The women in these movies are just a means to an end. They have no point to the plot.
Yeah, true. In a lot of these scenarios.
They're really they're just set pieces in this, which, I mean, it's a choice. It's a bad one, but it's a choice. I don't know.
Well, without further ado, before we get into the nitty-gritty, how about some horror news? Would you like to start?
Yeah, I only have one bit today.
Okay.
No, actually I have two bits, but one is just a very small announcement, so I will say that now. My coffin box has shipped.
What?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I doubt I'll get it before we record again on Sunday, but yeah, my coffin box, it's a copy of Rue Morgue and some random horror goodies. So we will have another unboxing for you. This will be on top of the normal horror pack I get. This is a completely different thing of like knickknacks and nonsense.
And now we haven't gotten any requests for your lingerie persona yet in the email, but guys, Corey is still completely open to it.
I have a lingerie persona?
Oh yeah, you wear lingerie and then you unbox your coffin box.
Oh, yeah. You want me my new YouTube series. I forgot about that. Yes. Yeah, that could be a thing.
Sony is giving us a 4K release of John Carpenter's Christine, according to Bloody Disgusting. That's right, guys. We're going to get an incredible DVD release of Christine. And Blu-ray.
I mean, I've seen it, but I haven't seen it in a really, really long time. And I think I was too young the first time because I don't remember liking it very much.
It's one of those movies that 10 years on did not age well, but 20 years on is more lovable for that. Kind of like Shocker.
Oh, I've always loved Shocker.
Well, you've always had issues.
That's a very good point. So Agony, a video game which I have talked about on a couple different episodes, I think at this point, has come out to mixed reviews. I've played a little bit of it. It's definitely a buggy walking simulator, but it's a walking simulator through hell. So I've enjoyed the limited time I've spent in the world, although a lot of people haven't. The company who created the game, MadMind, had originally planned on releasing a censored version on Xbox and PS4 because that's how the consoles roll, and the full version on PC. But then they changed their mind and they were only going to release the censored version on everything. They've changed their mind again and will be releasing the full version on PC either as a free update or DLC or a cheap paid DLC. And there's two reasons I can think for them doing this. Number one, it was always the plan to make more money. Or number two, Valve, the company behind Steam, has decided to stop curating their games. They're going to let anything in, no matter the content, no matter the quality. Just if you make a video game, tomorrow you can have it on Steam here pretty soon.
Well, that's a pretty pessimistic viewpoint.
Well, I think it's good and bad. It's good because a lot of stuff that will be censored anywhere else will be able to be played the way it was meant to be played. But it's also, there's been a problem with Steam releasing really crappy games because their curation has already been so bad. So the floodgates are just going to be open, and there's going to be a whole bunch of asset flipping, which is just using internet bot games and just changing the name and releasing it, stuff like that. It's going to be a mess, but it's going to allow for the full version of these games to come out. My only concern is that only time and money will tell if they did this for the money or if they're doing it to truly release the game they want to release. We'll see.
Believe it or not, I've also got some video game news, and it's big.
Really?
Mm-hmm. You know that incredible Friday the 13th game that was released in the past year with accolades from film geeks and video game nerds everywhere?
Yeah, I actually have it and I play it, and I subscribe to the subreddit and a Discord for it. It's had issues as of late, but I've enjoyed it when I've played it.
So the original screenplay writer for the first film, Victor Miller, is suing. He claims that because he was unemployed at the time that he wrote the script, but basically he believes that all rights and ownership of the property he should be able to reclaim. Which basically means that the game's going to be in limbo. Any new movies, any new concepts, even any new toys or products, there might be a little bit of a legal issue about actually releasing them and who truly owns the rights to Friday the 13th. So even though there's a lot of fans coming out with new maps, new custom scenarios, new kill packs, clothings, emotes, all kinds of new counselors, characters, those are pretty much going to be on hold for a while.
Yeah, most of that stuff isn't the fans. That's mostly the actual studio that's been releasing that stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, it sucks because I do play that game occasionally, but this is the first time I can think of where a game could potentially, all these people own this game and it could potentially be shut down for legal reasons. That's going to be a really interesting case to follow, because if you shut down a game that thousands of people already own, that opens you up to a whole nother legal situation, because then people aren't getting what they paid for, so you're going to have to reimburse all of them too, yeah?
But you know what? The team who made it and run it are still incredibly passionate about the game, and they're still going to run it. They're still going to keep bug fixing. They're not going to give up on it. Everyone's going to hold out hope. And the screenwriter, Victor, he'd be a fool not to give the fans what they want. In other games,
better keep up with bug fixes, because there's a lot of bugs they need to fix still.
Yeah. Aren't there always, though?
Yeah, but this game's been particularly rough.
My final little bit of news that I took is that The Predator, the new film, is going to reestablish the Alien vs. Predator canon. A combination of series that have gotten a little confusing over the last few sequels.
So are they going to do the Halloween thing and erase everything they've already screwed up, or?
Oh, that's a good question. Speaking of which, I'm not torturing my dog in the background, by the way. She's just a baby because she can't be in the podcast room. Speaking of Halloween, I watched the trailer finally. Oh my god, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a lack of Danny McBride.
Well, clearly that bit where Benedict Cumberbatch pulls out the mask in the beginning indicates that this doctor is a big fan of exposure therapy. The trailer looks amazing.
Yeah, it does.
I also did listen to you, and I watched the Suspiria trailer. I love the music. It looks like it could actually be good, so you're right. I'm going to give it a chance, Corey.
Yeah, I mean, me too. It's not going to be the original. I'm not ever going to like it more than the original, but it might be okay. We'll see. The trailer looks really good, like we said last week, so I'm glad you watched it. I'm glad you agree.
But be prepared for me to launch into a little bit of a nerdy remark or explanation or story here. It just immediately stood out to me because I watched a lot of Dark Shadows. There's a moment in the trailer where you see the headmistress's hands clasped together, right? Much like the headmistress obsessively did in the original film. That wasn't really a character choice so much as a compulsive habit I noticed Joan Bennett had on screen in Dark Shadows, especially when she was struggling with her lines or having anxiety issues on camera. I just thought it was interesting that they're probably keeping that quirk in this remake, and I don't know if it's a reference to the character or just a loving nod to Joan Bennett.
That's Tilda Swinton's character, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine
she's not the type to not research the hell out of a role, so I bet it's on purpose. And I bet it's some kind of, if not a homage to the actor, a shout out to the character.
Yeah, but for me, it's such a distracting thing that I hope that she doesn't do it throughout the entire film.
Mm-hmm.
And now when you're watching it, you're going to look for the hand clasping too. You're welcome, listeners. So that's all the news I have for today.
Yeah, that's all I got too.
Which means, what are we about to do right now?
I think it is time for the... Oh my god, Steven's gone. He's not dead. That came out weird. I went to buy that new game, Vampire, which you would probably really like. It gives me anxiety, though. You can, like, kill quest givers for experience points, so I don't know who to kill to get stronger. It's crazy. But anyways, I went to GameStop to pick it up, and Steven doesn't work there anymore. What? It wasn't anything like, there's no like GameStop drama story or anything like that. He, I guess he works at some comic book store about 45 minutes away from here now. So Steven, if you're listening, find me on Facebook or tweet at me, because I don't want to give my last name out on the podcast.
So I guess in memory of Steven, we need to change this to the Steven Memorial Guess That Death game.
See, I thought you were going to say that, but now it sounds like Steven's dead. Steven, you're not dead. Don't worry.
Okay, so the Steven pre-memorial Guess That Death game stands?
Yeah, or the...
Post-memorial?
No, because that means we stopped memorializing him.
All right, Steven, whether it's pre, post, or menopausal, this one's for you.
There you go.
Who won the last round?
I think I did.
Oh.
I honestly don't remember anymore. It's been such a hectic couple of weeks that I just don't even know.
We need to pay more attention. But you know what? Honestly, I was so not prepared last week. This week I am. So watch your back.
All right. So my first one is, there are always too many bones when cutting up bodies to feed to your coworkers. The actual important part of that is too many bones.
Okay. Do you have a hint for me?
Yes, it was Jackie Vernon's last film.
Oh.
And I really thought that hint was going to kill me on this one.
The only bone thing that's leaping to mind right now is one that doesn't involve cannibalism. It's Nothing But Trouble, but I know that can't be it.
Why is that movie following me around? I was listening, the most recent Last Podcast on the Left brought it up because they're doing a Tupac and Biggie multiple episode, and Tupac's actually in the Digital Underground song when they perform in that movie. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they mention Nothing But Trouble in every other episode, though. So.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. It does come up quite a bit. It comes up in one of their other ones, too. And it came up in Roundtable of Gentlemen a lot, too.
This is what they'd call synchronicity.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, so it's not Nothing But Trouble.
No.
Too many bones. Dark comedy. Oh, by the way, guys, this week the theme is dark comedy because it's really tough to narrow it down to island murder movies. I give up.
Microwave Massacre.
Oh, you suck.
Which I am going to watch right after I fit. Like, I've got more work to do tonight, and then I'm going to watch it right after.
Okay.
I'm so excited to watch it again.
Axe in the head, then eaten by a zombie. Puberty sure is rough.
Axe in the head, eaten by a zombie. Is it a Canadian TV show?
No.
Okay.
But Big Wolf on Campus is amazing.
All right, hint.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, axe in the head, eaten by cannibals.
Eaten by a zombie.
Eaten by a zombie.
There's
Philip Seymour Hoffman in a zombie movie.
He was pretty young.
I feel like I should just guess one, but I'm trying to... Yeah, I don't know.
My Boyfriend's Back.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that in a long time.
It's a good movie. I feel
it is.
I've used it in the game before. I feel like I've used a clue from that movie in the game before.
Well, I've thought about it since we've started this podcast, which means something's reminded me of it. Probably that.
All right. Moving on to you, we are tied.
All right, my next one is, if you're a sleazy photographer scamming girls into getting naked for a calendar shoot, make sure they don't have any baseball bats or chainsaws within reach.
Clue?
Gunnar Hansen of Leatherface fame actually plays a satanic priest in this.
I don't know, Maniac?
No, not Maniac.
I don't know.
Is that your final answer?
I don't know.
Hollywood chainsaw hookers.
I hate you. You were digging deep for this one.
No, these are actually movies I really like, like that I've watched a bunch.
All right, my next one is a giveaway. And you know what? Unlike you, I don't just think to myself, oh, that was too easy. Give me 5 minutes to Google a new one. I'm going to give you this one. Okay, it's a quote. Renfield, you asshole!
Renfield, you asshole. I think I know it, but give me a hint.
Peter McNichol.
That doesn't help, but is it Monster Squad?
No, but I do enjoy Monster Squad.
Shit, I don't know then. I'm going to feel real stupid.
Are you serious? You give up? Is that your final answer?
Oh, wait, no. It was that movie, it was that made-for-TV movie we watched. I'm not going to be able to remember the title, but am I right? Was it that?
No, it was not Nightlife.
Oh. Then, yeah, I'm not sure.
Dracula Dead and Loving It.
I hate that movie. Probably haven't seen it in, 5 years.
Okay, you're going to get tired of me saying this, but watch it with commentary.
I'll give it someday.
It's some of the funniest commentary you'll ever hear.
All right, well, this is probably my giveaway.
We are tied.
Yeah, this is probably my giveaway. You know it's going to be a rough day when even the ATM says, fuck you.
Oh, man, Maximum Overdrive.
Yep. I just wanted to get away with saying that.
Yeah, of course you did. And it said it to Stephen King, too.
Uh-huh.
I've got a little bit of a warning here. This one's going to sound a little risque, if you will. Marriage is rough when you're a mobster. Sometimes she's not the only one with, well, in her mouth. Anyone for seconds?
Hint.
Helen Mirren.
It's not Death Becomes Her?
No, I don't recall Helen Mirren in that one.
Well, I have no idea what it is, and I just know that there's fancy ladies in that movie.
I love that movie.
I remember liking it. I don't know. What is it?
The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover.
Oh, yeah. I have no idea.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
Mm-mm.
You need to watch it. Am I 1 point ahead of you?
I think you were 2 points ahead of me.
Oh, okay. That works.
I'm pretty sure. All right, so alcoholics should seek treatment before they melt into a blue goo on the toilet.
Slime City.
No.
What's the other one? The other melt movie. Slime City and Street Trash.
Yep.
Yay! I love melt movies. We need to talk about melt movies soon.
I'll totally do an episode
Yeah,
of
let's do it. All right.
So my hint on that one was Bryan Singer was a production assistant on that movie. I thought that was hilarious.
This tea tastes a little funny. Ladies, do you mind if I take a quick nap in your window seat?
Arsenic and Old Lace.
Oh, I hate you. That was too easy.
I'm a theater graduate.
I know.
I mean, you still won. There's no way I can win.
I just thought the clue was clever.
Oh, it was very clever.
All right, you're good.
Okay, so, well, actually, there is. If I get this one right, or if you get this one wrong and I get the next one right, we'd need a tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a tiebreaker?
I don't have a tiebreaker, but I'll frantically search for one. All right. My final thing of the night is Toadster! Would you like to hear it again?
Yes.
Toadster!
Does it need an effect?
Yeah, we can try one. Maybe a little reverb.
Yeah.
Toadster!
Okay.
Or I can pitch shift it. Toadster!
Okay.
Toadster! That's actually, hold on. That was a little, Toadster! I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, give me a hint.
It is a trauma movie.
Todsta? Like Todsta?
No, like Toddster. Toadster! Like something a fraternity brother might call another brother. Or a bro, as they say.
Okay. Poultrygeist?
No.
The Killer Nerd?
You can't just guess all the trauma movies and get it right.
Okay, fine. I give up.
Terror Firmer.
Oh, I would not have ever hit that one.
Oh, dude, it's the best. It's my favorite trauma movie.
All right. My last one. The one that determines whether or not we're tied or I beat you. Typical post-apocalyptic Frenchman, always trying to butcher the clown for dinner.
Post-apocalyptic Frenchman. It's not that terrible clown movie, is it? The two clowns that are in love with the same woman.
No, I've never seen that one.
Terrible, terrible movie.
Is it post-apocalyptic?
No.
Because I was about to say, it doesn't sound terrible if it's post-apocalyptic.
Well, I picture sepia tones, and I associate that with the apocalypse for some reason. Hint?
A lot in common with City of Lost Children.
Couldn't be Delicatessen.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we need a tiebreaker now. Because you couldn't just let it lie.
Sorry, you mentioned another two of my favorite movies. I can't help it. I love Delicatessen
it's such a beautiful movie. Yeah. They're both beautiful.
Delicatessen is, oddly enough, a whole lot like that J.G. Ballard book, High Rise. Well, which is also a movie now. It's a pretty good movie.
You know, it's a movie that shows you this brutal side of humanity, and then you see the guy who is the clown, and it's so innocent and sweet. And just, it's fantastic, the juxtaposition. And it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, High Rise is like that too, only there's a little less kindness in the people. They just sort of... J.G. Ballard was really good at writing about people embracing their weirdness. Are you sure you don't want to pick? Because I always pick.
I got a good one. I just need to remember their names. If Judge Reinhold and Bette Midler had a child, he'd be a serial killer.
Judge Reinhold and Bette Midler. May I have a clue, please?
3 directors. The Zucker brothers and Jim Abrahams. I'll give you another. Bill Pullman.
Bill Pullman, Zucker brothers. Shit, if I sat here and thought about this for 10 minutes, I could figure it out. I feel like I see Bill Pullman covered in slime or very dirty at some point in this movie.
No.
Oh. Then I don't know. I'll give it to you. I'll let you win.
Ruthless People.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have gone that.
So, with me winning the Stephen pre-post menopausal memorial Guess That Death game.
The Stephen's out there somewhere living his life death game.
The eternal Stephen of the Spotless Mind game.
Perfect. The, wait, can we keep this going?
What Stephens may come.
The Return of the Living Stephen death game. The Army of Stephen? Beetle Stephen?
Georgie Stephen?
Stephen Busters? We're just giving up at this point.
7 Stephens for 7 Stephen.
Young Stevenstein?
My Fair Stephen?
What We Do in the Stephens? Oh, nobody's going to think this is funny except maybe Stephen, and I don't even know if he's listening because he's gone. Oh, the tragedy. Stephen, if you're listening, please find me.
Should we call it the Desperately Seeking Stephen game now?
For the time being, at least until I track him down. It's just he's the only other guy I know in this area that's into industrial and electronic music. So, I go and talk to him about music. Now I got nobody to talk to about music.
Aww.
I know, it's tragic. I don't want to sound like I'm using the dude for his musical taste, because he's a good guy, too. It was nice to have a friend that happened to like the same music as me.
No, you didn't walk up to him every day after a podcast and be like, Stephen, did you hear our new podcast episode? We talked about
No. No. Although I did stalk him in there one day, and I asked one of his employees if he was going to be around because I needed to record him saying, please don't call it that, but I never did track him down.
Aw. Stop following me. That's going to be his next stuff.
I hope I wasn't accidentally stalking Steven. I'll feel like a dick if that was the case. God, Steven, you're 1 episode late.
All right, I think it's time to move on to the movies. What do you think?
Yeah, please, before I embarrass myself anymore.
So the first of our double features is Weekend at Bernie's from 1989. Larry and Richard are your typical 80s underdogs in a big business trying to get by, and especially get big. When they find, and by they I mean Richard, find some suspicious activity in the accounts, they take the news to their boss Bernie Lomax in hopes of a big reward, or even a promotion. Too bad for them, Bernie's been embezzling millions of dollars, and he has no intention of letting anyone find out. He invites the pair to his beach house to celebrate and talk things over. Or so they think. The former mafiosos Bernie works with decide Bernie's getting sloppy, and instead of helping him off the poor saps, they send a hitman to deal with Bernie instead. From then on, it's one chaotic, wild beach party with Richard and Larry doing everything they can to deal with Bernie's dead body and enjoy their beach vacation. Now, would you guess that the director of this film, Ted Ketchoff, also directed First Blood and Wake in Fright?
I would, but that's only because I have it in front of me because I looked it up to prep for this. I would not have even come close to considering that otherwise.
First Blood is obviously Rambo, but Wake in Fright it's kind of a movie that leaves you wanting to take a shower when you're done watching it. So it's a great movie. And somehow he ended up on Weekend at Bernie's. I don't know how that connection was made, honestly.
The writer directed the sequel. Mm-hmm. So obviously this dude got his paycheck, bought a swimming pool, and was out.
I thought it was funny when I watched this. The character Larry is such a sleazy, almost sociopathic, weird,
no,
jerk.
there is no question. He is a sociopath. He is the worst monster. He's worse than every other kid. He's worse than the mobsters trying to kill him. I mean, everybody in this movie is a bad person except for that poor girl that they use as a lamp, practically. She has nothing to do with anything other than furthering the plot. But yeah, Larry's an utter sociopath, doesn't care about what he's doing unless it benefits himself, doesn't care who he hurts on the way. Richard is a compulsive liar. I mean, the mobsters are mobsters. They just want to murder everyone. And Bernie is an embezzling sleazeball who's... I mean, it wasn't even that he was getting sloppy. It was that he was banging the mafioso's girlfriend, too.
Yeah.
Who, I might add, slept with Bernie after he died. So this movie also has necrophilia in it.
This was probably the only movie where I looked at Andrew McCarthy and I didn't think about how dreamy he was.
Oh my god, he's a monster in this. He is terrible. He's terrible in the sequel as well. Worst person ever.
Even when they find the suicide note that Bernie wrote, Larry's concern is that Bernie wrote he was getting a sex change operation.
Yeah, Larry was worried that he was the one that sounded gayer.
And then he proceeds to play games with Bernie's body.
Yeah. Oh. Monopoly, too. And he cheated. He was cheating. He wasn't even playing fair with the corpse. He was still cheating Bernie out of money. Oh, so
but I loved him so much for being this horrible person.
Oh, yeah, me too. This one still holds up to me. I really enjoyed 1. 2, we'll get to that. But I still enjoy 1, even though, typical late 80s, early 90s comedy, the entire plot is...
it hinges on one joke.
It hinges on one joke, and it is pushed forward by luck, the character's stupidity, and selfishness.
Well, it's the idiot plot, as Ebert would describe it, a movie that would be solved if everyone in the film wasn't an idiot.
Oh, definitely.
Also, Roger Ebert really hated this movie. He really hated it. Can you...
You know what? There was a really bad bit in this movie that I love, though. It's such a stupid joke, but I laughed every time it came up. During that first party scene when everybody just kind of wanders in, that one guy that keeps trying to buy Bernie's car.
Yeah.
And he starts at $30,000 and just keeps working his way up. I don't know why, but I found that hilarious. And that's another sign of Larry's sociopathic tendencies. He's like, you're a good negotiator, Bernie. Ugh.
But, I love him for it. I love him for how sleazy and just unlovable he is.
Mm-hmm. And he does play it really well.
Mm-hmm. Can you guess what this movie got on Rotten Tomatoes?
Oh, I didn't even look, but I'm sure it wasn't great.
Actually, it got a 54. A few more fresh than rotten, but pretty much split opinions for the most part. Check your brain at the door and let yourself just enjoy this movie, because just don't ask questions, because logic does not belong here.
They're right.
At one point, Terry, the actor who plays Bernie, was doped up because he'd broken a couple of ribs. So I'm sure that helped with a little of his acting. It was actually mostly him and an awesome stuntman. There wasn't really much dummy use except for the boat scene when he was being dragged along.
Yeah, I think there was a lot more of that in 2. I think there was a lot more dummy work in 2.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, one of the best parts of this and 2 is the way Terry Kaiser plays a corpse. You think it would be easy, but his facial expressions, just the way he does dead, is hilarious throughout the movie. And it wouldn't be nearly as funny if it wasn't so subtly ridiculous. And this dude pulled it off so well.
Like, they all were having fun.
Yeah.
Which is exactly how I think a comedy should be. Everyone should be having fun.
Yeah.
And this is a really stupid note I have. I noticed when I watched the beginning of the film, you really don't see a lot of polished marble in buildings anymore. Not really relevant, but I don't know, it just stood out to me. All the floors were polished.
I guess you're right, but how often do you get to go into buildings with the potential for polished marble? I imagine you're at least middle class. I can't imagine you're loaded.
Yeah, well, I mean, but like banks in these movies always have polished marble. Never that crappy industrial carpet that you see in every bank you've ever been into.
We have one really fancy bank in town here that might have a floor like that, but I haven't been in there in a long time because it's always so fancy. I'm afraid that they'll immediately arrest me for walking in there. Like, they know I'm up to no good if I go in there. But they might have polished marble floors in there.
I don't know where you... Actually, I do know where you are, but I forgot. But in Texas right now, it's been like consistently for the last 2 weeks, like 95 to 103 degrees outside. I can totally identify with these guys blowing off work at the beginning of the movie to chill out on the roof with fans and kiddie pools.
Oh, yeah, and that tar. Like, if you've spent any time in a hot summer in a city on a roof, like, you've dealt with that tar. Like, I mean, obviously that was a little bit of a cartoon version, but...
But I did get anxiety over how they handled their paperwork.
Yeah, that bothered me, too. For somebody who handles a lot of paperwork, I'm like, oh, God, how can you show that to someone? What are you doing?
Oh my gosh. And did you notice when Richard's love interest appeared, there was a blurry romantic frame on her?
No, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it was totally like rom-com, or not rom-com, but like Lifetime Channel style blurry frame.
Love interest. Oh, she's
from Night
I will
of the
get
Comet.
to this with mine. Yeah. Oh, no, believe me, I remember. Night of the Comet is amazing.
A great movie, yeah.
And there is a movie where a woman matters to the plot.
When they go to Bernie Lomax's office, there's something that bothered me. This man had too many desks. He had like 3 or 4 desks, and they spent most of the time walking around his office just for him to stop at one of his desks.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I have my computer desk. I have a smaller desk for bills and writing stuff, and then I have another desk I use as a workshop.
He also had a dining table.
Well, I don't have a dining table. I have a bed.
I wonder if they had to do a lot of takes in this movie, because it would have been really hard not to laugh once Bernie was dead.
Oh, I can't imagine Bernie kept a straight face for more than 2 or 3 scenes at a time. I can't imagine any of them did. It's just too insane, and the stuff they have to do is just too hilarious in this one.
And their wardrobe really reflects their characters, too, especially Andrew McCarthy's Larry character. Like, he's always wearing the tackiest combination of clothing. Mm-hmm. No fashion sense whatsoever. He looks like a sleazy car salesman, even in the very, very beginning.
Yeah, and I think they did this on purpose too, but his fashion was very outdated for someone who lived in a professional sort of, I mean, they worked for a pretty big insurance company, they were on their way up, but he was still in the early 90s wearing like big socks that were kind of rolled down over his Converse. Like, that wouldn't have been cool, like, for at least 2 years. So I thought it was cool that 93 was...
89 was the first one. 93.
Okay, never mind. Nix everything I just said. I keep getting Weekend at Bernie's 2 confused with 1, but we'll get to why later. So just nix everything I said.
I would like to remind the listeners, this movie is about 2 guys trying to hide the fact that they're walking around with a corpse in his beach house, and they don't want the cops to catch them, even though they had no part in his death. Somehow it's very lighthearted. You could not pull a theme off like this today without really dark tones.
Yeah, for sure.
But if
even the hitman that's chasing them around is like a wacky, lighthearted cartoon dude.
Mm-hmm. If there was a remake, and it's painful to say this, they'd use Michael Cera and Jonah Hill, probably with Will Ferrell as Bernie.
Now, John Hamm would play Bernie.
Oh, you think so?
For sure. No question. John Hamm would be Bernie.
But Michael Cera and Jonah Hill as Larry.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and they'd give Jonah Hill way too many lines because he'd be playing Larry.
Yeah, definitely.
Though it would be an interesting reversal of character type if he was the serious one and Michael Cera played the zany sociopath. Yeah. This is the only movie I can think of with a zany sociopath besides the Batman movies and Joker.
Yeah, you don't really see sociopath and wacky in the same film very often.
Speaking of twisted characters, the kid who buries Bernie twice is also a bit twisted. Even if he thought the unconscious dead man was consenting to being buried, why would he cover his face?
I feel weird that you said that because I felt like that was me as a kid. Like, that's exactly something I would do if I found a dude on the beach like that. I would bury him in the sand.
Entirely?
Probably.
Straw?
Probably. I remember getting yelled at for throwing sand in my dad's face and just being like, I was trying to bury you. Like, yeah.
You know, Bernie's body does hold up pretty well to all the abuse, the excessive sand, the water, the prolonged exposure to sunlight, physical beatings, sex.
I've got a bit about his body and the abuse in the next one as well, so. But yeah, you're right, it really does.
Some offset stuff. Did you know that the house in this movie no longer exists?
No, but that's a shame. That was a beautiful house.
Well, it was built specifically for the film.
Really?
It was basically a movie McMansion. And it was required in order for them to actually shoot there that they basically not screw with the landscape or leave evidence behind that there'd been any filming. So they built it for the movie and then they tore it down.
I get that because that was right around the time there was a lot of talk of the beaches eroding. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot in Ocean City, Maryland, up on my end of things. There was a pretty big push back then to pump sand back towards the beach. They had these offshore, I can't remember if they were rigs or pumps or what was doing it, but I'm not surprised they were trying to conserve the beaches, considering how much money beaches make.
There's also a limbo lawsuit against Fox for some accounting issues. The director and writer, Abby Ketchoff and Klain, basically feel like they got screwed out of a lot of money they were promised in their contracts based off of film residuals.
Really? And Ketchoff came back to... Oh, wait, no, that's not him. Never mind.
Yeah. I'm strictly referring to the first film.
Yeah.
I also do wonder why Ebert even bothered watching.
Oh, because Klain sued them too, because he's the director of the second one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I got confused. Yeah. All right.
I do wonder why Roger Ebert even bothered watching this. He could clearly see from the trailer that it wasn't his kind of movie. He
True.
interpreted all the gags as actors and crew desperate for laughs and didn't stop once to think that maybe they were just having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, that's all I can really say about Weekend at Bernie's Part 1.
Well, I mean, it's a good movie, and there's only so much you can say about a good movie. You know, you don't want to say everything because you don't want to. I mean, in contrast, I'm about to say everything about Weekend at Bernie's too, because even though I thought I loved it when I was a kid, I hated it last night.
I'm actually shocked because I still love Part 2. I do think that maybe it's not appropriate to watch them both like immediately in order because it's just a lot of the same joke to take in one sitting, but...
True.
All right, Weekend at Bernie's 2.
All right, Weekend at Bernie's 2.
Okay, be a little bit more optimistic. Be a little bit more upbeat about this movie.
My write-up is pretty upbeat. It's just not good. Well, it doesn't look. It's not good for the movie. I actually think it's pretty funny. So the boys are back in Weekend at Bernie's 2. It takes place right after the first one. They're back.
Hold up. Is there a subtitle?
I don't think so. Is there?
Weekend at Bernie's 2?
No, there's no subtitle.
There should be. Maybe Electric Burnaloo?
Jesus Christ.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go on.
How dare you make that joke during my part? I'm very disappointed in you. So I thought you were talking about, because I ended up... All right, do you want me to start again, or do you want to keep your Electric Burnaloo?
I'm keeping the Electric Burnaloo.
Okay. Anyway, like I was saying, it takes place right after the first one. They're back in New York and are immediately fired from their job because the company's owners think they were involved in the theft and that they know where Bernie's $2 million is hidden, which is already ridiculous because why would these two young loser accountants who obviously never talked to Bernie, why would they be involved in this scheme? I guess there's an argument to be made that, like, maybe it's because they didn't know Bernie, but yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Real quick,
go ahead.
You know the guy who's sent to investigate him, you recognize him?
Yeah, dude, Barry Bostwick.
Yeah.
I only call him Barry Bostwick through this whole thing. Oh, he's from a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he was Brad in Rocky Horror. He was also Thodin from Lex, and that's what stood out to me.
Oh, he was in Lex?
Yeah, he was Thodin.
I did not know that.
The hero character from, like, episode 1.
I didn't know he was in Rocky Horror Picture Show either.
He was Brad!
I mean, I knew Brad, but he looked so different that I had no idea. So yeah, they send Barry Bostwick, who plays one of the owners or partners or boss buddies. I don't know what people in companies are called, and I'm not really sure what his position was.
Executive, maybe?
Executive, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, he's the one that has to go follow Larry and Richard in the hope that they will lead him to the money. Normally, I find Bostwick pretty hilarious, you know, in the stuff that I've got in front of me. Find something specific.
I will say this about this movie. I really miss animated intros.
Yeah, me too. I think we talked about this during Night of the Demons as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. He was in an episode of Scrubs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the dude can play funny. It was obviously trying to catch the same sort of feelings that the hitman in One.
Mm-hmm.
You know, slowly going crazy because I keep seeing Bernie, and I just didn't think it worked with him. I just thought he was a mess in this film.
Mm-hmm.
So, Larry, the sociopath, the monster, this may be out of order a little bit because I couldn't focus on this movie to save my life. I had to keep rewinding and watching again. I watched more of it this morning because I forgot a bunch. So, feel free to correct me, and some of this might be out of order, but I'm going to just keep going regardless. So Larry the sociopath has, of course, taken Bernie's personal effects from the police station, and he finds a key to a safety deposit box in the Virgin Islands.
Because why not?
Right, you know, of course. So here starts our adventure, and the boys realize the only way that they can get into this safe deposit box is if they have Bernie with them. So, of course, they start plotting to steal the body again. Meanwhile, in the Virgin Islands, a voodoo queen, I think, who's involved with the cartels that Bernie also embezzled this money from.
Along those lines.
She enlists two idiots who are vacationing in the Virgin Islands and I think just stumbled upon her compound looking for a party.
I actually like those two characters. I thought their dynamic was hilarious.
I thought they were funny, but they were idiots. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that wasn't uncommon in the 80s to, unfortunately, have an incredibly racist stereotype of two dumb guys.
Yeah, and this gets bad. I'll touch on that soon, too. So these two poor vacationers get
cursed.
They get enlisted into this plot to steal Bernie's body. And by enlist, I mean enchanted with magic dust. And by steal, I mean resurrect and follow it to the money's hiding place. So they get to the morgue, and after another ridiculous bout of abuse of a corpse, they steal Bernie's body, and they bungle the ritual by losing the chicken they're supposed to sacrifice.
And this is the best scene in the movie.
Yeah, here's where the casual racism comedy comes in. While briefly contemplating using fried chicken, they decide to substitute a pigeon. So it goes from casually racist to like stereotypical New York. Oh, hey, let's just kill a pigeon. There's so many of these. That's my New York accent. What do you guys from New York think? Oh, that was awful.
Us. And also give us your opinion of him running a video YouTube channel in black lace panties.
Oh God! Oh, now it's panties?
Well, lingerie also implies panties, sir.
I hate that word. So this means, of course, that Bernie isn't fully resurrected. He can walk around on his own, but only when music is playing, which is probably the only part of this movie I found consistently funny. The way Terry Kaiser does this, like, rhythmic dance walk and head shake is hilarious all through the movie. Anytime he's knocked over, he does this like pelvic thrust and he starts doing it to like get up. It's just perfect, and it's so funny, and it's apparently so ingrained into my psyche from watching this as a kid that I realized last night that I've been imitating this dance most of my life. Like, I have a very small repertoire of ridiculous dances I do, and this is one of those dances. Unfortunately, to me, this movie was so forgettable that I had no idea that's where I got it from.
Well, you know, there is a modern dance inspired by this movie called the Bernie.
Oh, that's like, yeah, I've seen that now I think about it. All right, so the Voodoo Vacationer leaves Bernie's body on the subway, and they get arrested for fighting outside the subway. The cops find it and return him to the morgue. Enter Larry and Richard again. They manage to steal the body. Or keep in mind, it's already enchanted and has already been stolen once. They stuff it into a suitcase, and they trot off to the Virgin Islands, somehow managing to get through custom, baggage checks, and their own stupidity. I've learned two very important things from this scene. Morgues are not secure places, and you can apparently travel with anything you want to before 9/11.
And also don't underestimate the power of Larry's sneaky sleaziness.
No, and luck. These two, like, this movie is completely pushed forward by just dumb luck. And Bernie's credit cards. Larry funds this entire trip with Bernie's credit cards because he's the worst. And they rent a really fancy villa with a mini bar that they use to store Bernie in. I actually had a little bit of trouble when they opened the suitcase and you see Bernie in there all folded up. That made me kind of wince a little bit. So for most of this, no, I know, but like for most of this movie, it's very cartoony, but for some reason seeing his foot where his head should be it just kind of like made my skin crawl a little bit. It was weird.
Makes you wonder what Bernie Lomax would have thought about all this.
Yeah, good. I mean, I imagine considering how sleazy he was and how into like the ladies he was probably kind of bendy.
I think he and Larry could have gotten along.
Jogging suits and windbreakers. I don't know if they would have gotten along. I think they just would have eventually taken to plotting to murder each other because they were both complete sociopaths, I think. So at this point, we've got the cartel using voodoo and two idiots to get to the money. We've got Bernie's company using Barry Bostwick to follow two idiots following the clues the corpse left behind to get to the body. And then we've got the two main idiots just trying to get to the bank by using these clues. So these three groups are following each other and it's all just ridiculous. Richard got to meet a girl that didn't matter in the last movie and isn't even mentioned in this one. Like, do you remember hearing anything about her in this one?
Not at all.
Forget the girls. It's not about the girls.
Yeah, probably after they gathered Bernie's body and Richard and Larry went to the police and everything, she calmed down and she was like, hold on, I don't think I want to be involved with this.
She probably wised up and was like, wait, I'm dating a guy who knowingly hung out with a corpse for 2 days. I'm not okay with this. That's probably what happened there. So it's Larry's turn to meet a girl this time who doesn't matter and she doesn't even make it to the end of the movie with him. Like, she's just forgotten before the final scene.
Well, she's not even interested in him either. She is
in the beginning, and then, see, this is another thing that was forgettable. Like, they were, like, hitting it off at first, and then he did something that I missed to mess it up.
We missed their whole date, and he said typical Larry stuff, and she was like, you know what, I'm going to sprinkle salt on this guy's feet, because I'm done.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe he told her all about Bernie.
It could be. He talked about last week, their adventures last week. So the only point to this girl is that her father happens to be a doctor, but he's also conveniently a voodoo practitioner himself, so he knows about this stuff, and this is important later, but that's the whole point of her, and I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. It wouldn't be a weekend at Bernie's if we didn't mention necrophilia. At least in this case, it doesn't quite play out. So Bernie hears music, manages to escape his minibar tomb, and Dance wanders off to the party outside and ends up leading a conga line because of course he does.
Another great scene with a fun conga song.
I will give you that. That is pretty fun. He meets a girl, or I guess a girl meets him, and he gets into a fight with her boyfriend. Well, he doesn't. Her boyfriend keeps punching him out, and Bernie keeps getting up because there's still music playing, and I can't for the life of me remember how the boyfriend ends up leaving because this movie's impossible for me to pay attention to.
She just tells him to leave.
Oh, it's that simple? He punches Bernie a bunch of times and she tells him to go?
Yeah, she raises her voice a little.
So then we head back to New York to see what the voodoo vacationers are up to. They decide to give up their search, but then they start making goat noises and realize that they don't finish their mission. They turn into goats. Mm-hmm. So off to the Virgin Islands they go. The next morning, the boys finally realize they've lost Bernie. They find him sleeping on the beach outside with a girl from the conga line. I should mention that they're both fully clothed, so at least in this one we didn't get any necrophilias.
No, she just spent the whole night talking to a dead body.
Yeah, she just talked and cuddled with poor dead Bernie.
Who can talk that much?
I know a lot of people that could. I know plenty of people who have kept talking to me long after I've stopped listening. That's maybe partially because I'm a bad person, but mostly because a lot of people are boring. So maybe it's all because I'm a bad person anyway.
You know, I do feel like the whole spell that brought Bernie back, I think I'd probably take the same shortcuts. I'm really lazy when it comes to some recipes.
Yeah, I don't know, but magic is magic. Like, I'm pretty sure if it calls for a chicken, you need to know better. You need to get that body a chicken.
Well, this was kind of sprung on them.
True. And I guess there wasn't quite as much. I mean, this was before the widespread use of the internet, so there wasn't quite as much. People didn't know as much about magic. It was a different time.
She didn't do her research on the proper sort of slaves to carry this out. She just picked two poor schmucks who wanted to go to a party.
It's true. Sorry, I just zoned out for a second. They take Bernie shopping for new clothes before they go to the bank. Like, that's what the next scene is about, right?
That's getting too specific for me to remember.
Oh, okay. Anyway, they take him shopping. I think it's for a new outfit so he doesn't go in looking like a dead jogger, which is basically what he looks like for the whole thing. During the shopping spree, the voodoo vacationers steal his body again. You get another short, zany chase, which, okay, you get another little bit of hilarious physical comedy here. The boys jump out in front of the voodoo vacationer's car. They stop and they, like, ask them what time it is and, like, wander off to each side of the car. And as the car is driving past, they both grab a foot of Bernie's and just yank him out of the back of the car. He bounces off the cement. That was pretty funny. I'll give it that. Now they finally get to the bank. They open the safe deposit box, and all that's in there is a map hastily scrawled on a piece of newspaper with some weird voodoo symbols all over. So they go back to Larry's girl, and she enlists her father to tell them what these symbols are about. I don't think that we learn anything yet, but again, it's all jumbled in my brain. They lose Bernie again because he wanders off following some tourist cart playing calypso music or whatever music they listen to in the Virgin Islands. I don't know. I assume calypso sounds right. I don't know. But the boys get kidnapped by the voodoo vacationers and taken to the voodoo priestess. And this is where things get fuzzy for me again. I know that Richard drinks the poison, but I thought they both drank the poison, and they were doing like a Ferris Bueller's Day Off thing where Richard was Cameron, and he was like, oh, woe is me, we're going to die, I'm going to overplay my sickness, and Larry was just kind of like pushing through it like Ferris would have. But no, I was wrong. Richard was the only one to drink the poison, and I didn't realize that until like the last 10 minutes of the movie.
But it's also a good thing, given the circumstances in the final scene, because you know Richard is a compulsive liar, so he's had sex a few times.
True. I actually, there's a question about Larry's virginity, which we're going to get to. So somehow during all this, Bernie ends up parasailing. Again, I know I missed something, but he's all of a sudden parasailing.
Gotta throw him in water again.
Yeah. And again, I've got a bit about him in water soon, too. So this is where we get our brief gratuitous boob scene, which gets Barry Bostwick arrested. Bernie then gets attacked by a shark. The shark actually bites him and holds on so tight that his parachute pulls it out of the water and like 20 feet into the air before it drops back to the sea. Bernie's fine. No bite marks, no holes in his clothes. This movie is a cartoon about sociopaths and compulsive liars.
Yeah, what did I say about checking your brain at the door?
Yeah, very true.
Chuck your brain far away.
So another place where luck falls into the plot, Bernie's body falls down right in front of the boys. And I missed something else because now they're at the beach and they have the body back and they figured out that Bernie can walk. I don't know. I don't know how it happened, but they find out Bernie can walk and they figure out that he can lead him to the money. So they rent scuba gear and Larry gets a harpoon gun. Mm-hmm. Larry gets the harpoon gun, Maddie.
Yeah. Larry.
I wonder what's going to happen next.
I do wonder if you had changed the soundtrack for these films, whether or not the tone would have completely changed.
It very much could be like the birth of a serial killer or a serial killing duo.
Like every time Larry does something, a creepy character song plays, like da 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 da.
I'd be really interested to find out if that exists anywhere. So Bernie leads them to the underwater treasure. Barry Bostwick is now, for some reason, in a submarine for tourists, and everybody's called to one side, but he's, of course, still looking out, and he sees Bernie walking around on the ocean floor, and he gets another step closer to crazy.
Gets into a fight
Larry and
with
Richard.
Constance Schulman, who played Patty Mayonnaise and Doug.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I get excited whenever I hear her voice in a movie, because there's no mistaking it.
No, that's cool. I didn't even catch that, though. Yeah. So they finally get the treasure, but the corpse won't let go, so they use what I guess is science to get them to shore. And by science, I mean they attach an oxygen tank to his back and twist a knob. This makes them float up, which, of course, started making me think about gas and bodies and corpses, and the fact that at this point there would probably be so many gases built up inside of Bernie that he would be incapable of sinking to the bottom of the ocean floor to actually walk there. So what I think we're missing is the boys have finally... Their descent into madness is finally concluded, and there is an off-scene part where they just punch a bunch of holes in Bernie to make sure he doesn't float. So I think that and I guess the shark teeth too. Like they would have released some gas that way. So anyway, that's...
While Larry's song played, da-da, da-da.
They're just slowly easing ice picks into Bernie. Oh, I almost forgot. Larry shoots Bernie through the head with a harpoon.
Yeah.
Which is great, because now they have a handle to pull him around.
Exactly, and Larry probably came up with the idea.
Well, he's the one pulling him out of the water by the handles, I think. Yeah. So now as they're dragging him to land, I guess they must be getting close to – it gets a little weird here too, but they're getting closer to the voodoo priestess's lair or whatever. They come across a horse-drawn tourist cart, and they see the body. The tourists all run off, and the guy driving the cart jumps on the horse that's saddled for some reason and rides off. So now they just have this cart, and they decide, hey, let's use Bernie. So they put some music on, strap him in. Bernie is now a beast of burden. This works out for a little while until they reach a hill, and they start going down the hill super fast, and it leans back, and Bernie's up off the ground doing his little dance, which is hilarious. Mm-hmm. They drive past the cop that has arrested Barry Bostwick's character again, who turns around to chase them, and the voodoo vacationers. How does he get control
of that wheel?
The cop decides to do that.
Ah.
Yeah, the cop driving sees them and then follows. What I can't remember is how the voodoo vacationers end up there.
Magic.
Yeah, we'll just go with magic. So this entire downhill Bernie drawn cart thing ends after they crash through a bunch of fruit stands. Typical thing about uncontrolled stuff going downhill. They crash in front of the voodoo priestess's lair, knocking her unconscious and giving her a concussion. So, oh no, there's no way to save Richard now. Luckily,
Larry's a virgin.
Well, no, yeah, we're getting to that. I have questions about that, too. Luckily, the doctor who got into the car with Crazy Barry Bostwick's character was the girl's voodoo dad. So he gets out, and he's like, oh, there's one way we can save him. We can reverse this curse only if we had virgin blood. And Larry reluctantly admits that he's a virgin, which I don't think is true. And here's why. In the first weekend at Bernie's, so I forget what happens, but Richard runs upstairs and he's banging on Larry's door. And Larry comes to the door, pretty obviously naked, and he won't let Richard in. I'm pretty sure he was meant to be in there with a girl. And the dude is like a sociopath. There's no way you can't tell me somebody in their late 20s with sociopathic tendencies wasn't able to scam some girl into his bed.
He could be impotent.
He could be, that's true. Or, calling back to the beginning of this movie, they could have gotten this ritual wrong because Larry lied, and it actually brought Richard back wrong. And that's why Richard's willing to... Okay, so...
Oh, boy.
Got the money. Larry gives all the money back to Barry Bostwick, except for $1 million he hid. And the end of the movie is... Larry has chartered a boat with this crew of hot blondes, and they're going to sail to Monte Carlo. And Richard's super reluctant about it. And I think Richard would have always been super reluctant about it if this ritual wouldn't have gone wrong and Larry's tainted blood wouldn't have been involved in this. I think that, like, it has changed Richard for the worse, and now Richard has some of these Larry-like tendencies. I think if we would have seen a third one, we would have probably seen Richard just straight murder a kid. That's probably what would have happened.
Well, there have been scattered rumors in Hollywood for years about doing a part 3.
So, I mean, there wouldn't be much left of Bernie for a part 3.
Well, that's the thing, though. Part 1 to part 2, it's supposed to be maybe a matter of a couple days after the first one, when it's very clearly at least 5 years based on the clothing and the quality of the film budget and the music and the soundtrack, right? But wouldn't it be funny if they did that again with this one, and again not explaining whatsoever why he hasn't rotted and aged over 20 years?
Yeah, I would be okay with that. I would totally be okay with that.
As long as they play into it, it could work.
So I actually wrote the line that Larry gets to sail to Monte Carlo with his bestie. I used the word bestie. Oh, and the Voodoo Vacationers turned into goats. The end.
Of course, yeah. You gotta wonder if the Mobu died. What?
The goats could telepathically speak to each other, too, because they do speak to each other at Carnival at the end.
So if the Mobu
when they're being led by Bernie, that's what happened to Bernie. I forgot about that. Sorry, go ahead.
If the Mobu died, then Bernie doesn't have the purpose anymore, right? Like, why would he still be walking, and where would he be leading them?
Probably to some, like, poor victim to eat or something. Like, he probably just went straight feral at this point.
Ah. The
Maybe.
walking, dancing dead man.
Yeah. The walking, dancing, eating cannibal dead man.
Your friend's been gone for a while. Do you think we should turn the music back on?
Yeah, it couldn't hurt. Unless he fell off the balcony. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Okay.
There was a that was supposed to meet me later tonight.
Okay, well, we'll go help him in just a bit, but first we got to get these last credits out.
Oh, yeah. We'll worry about her later.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you want to check out the blog, you can check us out at Hallow-Holic.blogspot.com or Hallow-Holic.wordpress.com.
You can also find us on Twitter at Hallow-Holics or at Nowhere23. Also, you can read about us on Podpedia. They make us say that. What? What? I'm kidding?
You can email us, too, at Hallow-Holics@outlook.com.
Please do. You guys, we're lonely.
All right, I think that about wraps it up. Good night, guys.
Thank you for listening.